right, here we go. Welcome to This is Revenue Roadmap, where we talk about driving revenue and increasing profits in local businesses. I'm Anthony Karls, president of Rocket Clicks. Today we are talking sales with our CEO, Tyler Dolph. So Tyler, welcome.
Excited to be here. Thank you very much.
So today we're going to be talking a little bit about a mindset for sales. And one thing I know we've run into with our different team members in both this business and in the other business that I was part of is I'm not a salesperson. So we're going to talk a little bit about that question. But before we do that, I have a question for you, good sir.
Sure.
So, what one lesson or piece of advice changed your life and the way you think?
Whoa. Heavy, deep one to start out.
Start out with a big raw question.
I think one piece that I hear now all the time, but I hadn't heard it for an early part of my life, was that hope is not a strategy. And it's so true. I would consider myself an eternal optimist, and I try to find the good in everything, but it's not going to turn out well or be perfect all the time. And that if you don't have a strategy or a process, then you're never going to get to where you want to go. So hope is not a strategy is what I'm going to go with.
I love that. That's a great one. That should go on a t-shirt.
Yes.
That's good. All right. So let's jump into our topic.
Let's do it.
So what is the right mindset for anybody in a company as it pertains to that question or that statement maybe? But I'm not a salesperson.
I think what's really interesting about that, especially so I'll give the answer two ways. One, as a small business, if you are running a small business or you're in a small business or you even work with small businesses, revenue is oxygen, right? Revenue pays the bills. I used to always say here at Rocket Clicks when we were much smaller that our clients pay our paychecks. Mm-hmm. So we got to do a great job for our clients because they're the ones actually paying. They're putting food on our table. And getting new clients is the only way that we're going to be able to grow, right? We have to be able to get new revenue. And the way to get new revenue is to sell, right? You're either selling yourself by communicating the work that you've done and you're trying to gain confidence and sell that idea or that recommendation into the client. You're either selling on behalf of your company, trying to get the deal. But in my opinion, you're always selling. I'm selling when I go home tonight and I'm trying to get the dinner of choice or the restaurant of choice, or I'm trying to sell my kids on going to bed at the right time. Every interaction is a potential sale from my perspective.
Yeah. So Grant Cardone, who we use some of his training material here at Rocket Clicks, one of the things he says is selling is a prerequisite for life. So we're talking today three different buckets. So what does selling include? What does selling have to do with? And what are some examples? So let's start with the top. Let's start with the first top one. So what is included in selling?
So I think selling includes a number of things. Firstly, negotiating, right? Like if you're selling your house or you have young kids that need to go to bed at a certain time, you're constantly negotiating, going back and forth. Listen, here's the benefit of getting 8 hours of sleep. Here's why you can't have 90 pieces of candy before bed. All of that is a negotiation. That's the fun set. I think in the business setting, you're negotiating your ideas versus someone else's ideas, or the price of a proposal versus what they're willing to spend. Every conversation starts basically with a negotiation, a back and forth, a discussion around what is right versus what you should do versus all of those things involved. The second is agreement, right? You need to get agreement out of the discussion or negotiation you're having. Yeah. And I have found that if people like you or they like doing business with you or they trust you, you're going to be able to get that agreement faster. Mm-hmm. And then you have to get others to support you, right? So, hey, I have this idea. Great, I've sold it into this person, but in order to get it done, I need the team to come on board and to help enact that idea. Or I need my wife to support me to say, hey, we're putting the kids down now. Let's make sure that happens.
Nice. So what are some things that are included in selling? So like, what does it have to do with any, like, just give me a list of words or give me a list of circumstances on what does selling have to do with? Like, what are all of the different scenarios?
So it's like, it's convincing, it's persuading, it's negotiating, debating, and getting your way, right? Like all of those things are involved in creating the sale and opportunity, and ultimately being able to do what you need to do in order to get the job done.
Yeah. So what are some examples of this? Because I think this is kind of where people can struggle sometimes because they think like, well, that's not my job. My job isn't to sell. That's an interesting perspective, and I think the reality is very different. I think you've given several different really good examples that, like, are you approaching your bedtime with your young child like a potential sale, and like how are you navigating that? Because if you're just yelling at them and you just yelled at a prospect that you're trying to sell service to, you could probably figure how well that's going to work.
Right.
So like, what are some other ways to like frame selling for people to understand in a different way?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of different scenarios. One is you're a small business owner and you need a loan, right? You're going to go sell the bank on your future potential as a business owner, right? That's 100% a sale. It's conversation, and you're asking for something. You need to get something in return. That's a sale.
And it's not just like a component of that is your books and the health of your books and how your projections look and all of that. But if that's looking all great, but you come and you don't really show up to that meeting all that well,
you may have a lot of doubt.
You may have a little different outcome than you're anticipating because you may have projected some insecurity and a lot of doubt and like, is this all real? Like, I'm not sure about this cat. Into that conversation.
100%. I mean, even if you think about our business here at Rocket Clicks, when we get the sale, we get a customer. But our business is built on compounding recurring revenue, meaning the longer we keep our clients, the better we do as a business. And so we have to sell ourselves every day. Every time we're talking to the clients, we have to instill some confidence. We have to sell in new ideas. We have to create a vision of what the future of our relationship is going to be in order for them to keep paying us. So those are little mini sales that happen along the way that should absolutely be considered a sale, even though we may just be presenting data or presenting a new idea. All of those are sales.
Yeah. So what are some other examples? What else you got?
Oh, let me think here. Let's say we talked about a bank loan. We talked about internal. If I'm a plant manager and I have employees that aren't showing up on time, and I need them to run the machines, 12 hours today, I need to sell in the why they should come in on time, right? And I may use things like, that's why I pay you, or you get paid by the hour, and in order to make this paycheck, you need to come in and do your job. Again, those are conversations, but they're sales conversations. You're negotiating an outcome based on an ask. And so the more you can get them to do what you need them to do, the better your business is going to run, and the more sales you're going to be able to make.
So what do you feel like one thing critical to being successful at sales is when you're having these conversations where you're trying to convince or persuade or you're debating an idea? What are on the other side of that conversation? What are you trying to accomplish?
I mean, I think we could do a whole podcast on this, and I'm sure we will. But selling and believing what you're selling is so important to achieving the outcome you want. If you look at our sales team and they have a great streak, and then you find that they haven't closed something in a few weeks or a few months, and you go to them and they've lost belief for some reason, either in themselves or in the product they're selling. And I think you can correlate that to everyday conversations, right? If you don't actually want your kids to go to bed at a certain time, you're not going to push that hard. You're going to, not be a little more lenient, or say, okay, 10 more minutes or whatever it is. It's because you don't actually believe that 7 o'clock is the right time they should go to bed. Maybe it's 7:30 or maybe it's 8 or whatever it is. So the more conviction and belief you have in what you're selling, the better the outcome is going to be. If you don't actually believe it, you're not going to sell it with any passion. You're probably not going to come as prepared, and it's not going to go the way you want.
Yeah. If you don't believe the why behind what you're doing and the value that it's going to bring, it's going to be pretty tough to convince somebody else to put some of their money up to buy a thing we really believe in.
Yeah, I mean, even if you think about car salesmen, the best car salesmen love the cars that they're actually selling. They intimately understand every detail, every knob, every button, every feature, to sell you on like why this is the best car for you.
Yeah, nice. Let's see here. So let's ask one more question. So what do you feel like? Uh, what do you feel like is one of the biggest roadblocks most businesses um, have in committing to believing selling is a prerequisite for like just doing life in general and having every position really embrace that? Like, we feel like what do you feel like the biggest roadblock is there?
I mean, I think in some organizations or with some individuals, selling has a negative connotation. Oh, I don't sell. That's gross. That's bad.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, that's a belief thing, right? They don't believe in what they're selling, so that's why they think it's gross or they think it's bad.
Yeah.
In reality, if they're passionate about something, and if you ask them about some reality, if they're passionate about something, and if that is right,
Yeah.
tell me about your new bike that I know that you love because you're a long distance bike rider. And they'll go on for 20 minutes about how this bike is the most amazing thing ever and it's carbon fiber and blah, blah, blah. I mean, they're selling you on this bike, right? So they don't actually think selling is gross or negative. They just don't want to sell what you have.
We have to believe in what we're selling. And sometimes people in businesses will avoid selling for the business or say, I'm not a salesperson, or that's not part of my function, or so on and so forth, those types of things. And you were saying it's about belief, like there's a
100%.
belief issue. So like how does that manifest? Like, how do you redirect that conversation back into everybody is a salesperson? Like, and here's an example of how.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could have an employee who had a bad experience or who doesn't believe that they're in sales, and they'll tell you, well, no, sales is gross. That's not what I do. And then in the next breath, you could say, you could ask them about something that they're passionate about, right? Like we have an employee that loves to long distance bike ride. Yeah. And I could say something like, hey, I heard you got a new bike. Tell me about it. And they'll freaking sell you on this new bike for 20 minutes, telling you all the features and it's titanium and blah, blah, blah. In reality, they just don't believe in what you want them to sell.
Yeah.
So I think creating that clarity with them when they come to you and they say, well, I'm not in sales or I don't do sales, and getting to the bottom of like, well, what about what we do or the product we sell or the service we have don't you believe in, in order to convince someone or even and talk passionately about what that is. And that's going to give you a lot of perspective into who that individual is, and potentially some opportunities to improve your product or service that someone on the inside has already identified and can see.
Yeah. It's a lot easier for everybody in a business to be a salesperson when they're proud and passionate about the product or service that we are providing.
100%.
They're excited about it. They're like, yeah, everybody should have this. Like one of the best, you're really good at this for Rocket Clicks over at the law firm that I was part of. Mary, she was so passionate about how we approached helping people navigate through divorce. So that's how she came off on the phone. And like, she really believed this is the safest place for you to be, to come do this, is do it with us. You'll be safer with us.
100% agree.
We felt that from her. And that's why she was successful. It wasn't because she knew what to say and when, and like she was super circusy in her language around these conversations. She just believed it, and the clients understood, like they could feel how much she believed it.
I think the hardest thing to do in sales, especially if you're in a sales role, is to sell something you don't believe in.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you asked me to go sell a broken down car that I knew was not going to work for a family that needed it, that would be the most difficult sale, because I knew or I know internally that this is not the right solution for them.
Yeah.
If you can create a product or service or a business that you're passionate about and that you would actually sell and believe in, well then, and everyone has that same mindset. Everyone in the business should be selling because they're passionate, they believe what you have and what you're selling, what you're gifting out to the world.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, appreciate it, Tyler. Any final thoughts before we wrap up on this topic here, selling being a prerequisite for life?
I appreciate the opportunity. I hope it is valuable for all of our listeners out there.
Awesome. Appreciate it, Tyler.
Thank you.